thegearnetwork.com.
The following is a presentation of the Gear Radio Network.
Hey guys, I'm Felissa Rose Angela from Sleepaway Camp, and you're listening to the All Bets Are Off with Robbie Vegas podcast.
What's up, rock soldiers? This is the rockstar Robbie Vegas bringing you another episode of the All Bets Are Off podcast. We missed you last week, took Memorial Day weekend off, but we're back with Sumo Cyco today. We have Skye Sweetnam on the line, getting ready to tell you guys about their new album, Initiation, which has only been out for about a month, so that's pretty exciting stuff. But before we get into it, we need to let you know that today is sponsored by Brush. Brush is an electric toothbrush that will change the way you think about brushing your teeth. With powerful sonic technology and ultra-gentle bristles, the Brush redefines what it means to have super clean teeth. It's like that feeling when you just leave the dentist, a fresh whole mouth clean every single day. Our listeners get 15% off their total purchase with code POD15. Follow the link in the show notes and enter the code POD15 to get your exclusive discount and upgrade your oral care routine. So, now that we got that out of the way, we're going to get Skye on the phone, but first, I'm going to play you guys a clip from a brand new track from Initiation. This is called Bystander by Sumo Cyco.
Bystander, watching the world go, oh my God, I don't wanna be a bystander, I don't wanna be a bystander. Hello, good morning, cause it's up in the night, jumping in my own thoughts right now. Comfortable with mediocrity, it's amazing, and we're wasting. Compare with royalty.
So, Skye, the first thing I want to do is thank you for being here. I'm a big fan, so I truly appreciate your time.
Thanks so much. It's always good to spread the word about the band, and we appreciate you being a fan. That's wicked.
Well, let me tell you, the first time I actually ever saw you perform was in 2004.
Wow. Okay, so OG, way back in the day, man. That's crazy.
Yeah, I still remember the show. Like, I remember not being, like, too cool about going. Like, somebody bought me tickets to a show I didn't really care about. And then I was like, whoa, there's some killer bands on this show. It was in Buffalo, and it was for a thing called Christmas Bash. And
oh my God, yeah, I totally remember that show.
yeah, that was the first time I heard of you. And then fast forward to Sumo Cyco, and I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, it's crazy. It is wild when I think of how much time has passed and all this. But yeah, that was a fun show. I remember that specifically because I think, was it like Good Charlotte was on the show and like Hillary Duff and some big names and stuff at the time? I remember doing some radio shows like that were pretty intense with a lot of bigger acts, and I remember Benji from Good Charlotte took my eyeliner because he ran out of black eyeliner. And then I remember the drum tech being like, oh, we don't have to mic your drums, right? And I was like, what? Of course you have to mic the drums. And it was, I guess, one of the other acts was like totally lip syncing, so they didn't need like any mics to like mic the drum kit. And I was like, no, put mics on our drum kit, please. So yeah, that's what I remember from that show.
That's funny. Yeah, I think the headliner that day was, I want to say Avril Lavigne, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know if I actually played any shows with Avril out of all the times I got compared to her. So I'm not sure if she was on that bill, but maybe. There's a possibility.
So really, you've been on the scene since about 2003, right?
Yeah, so I think it was 2003 when the first single dropped from my solo career. Yeah, way back in the day. So it's been a long bunch of years.
Yeah. So when did you first realize that you wanted to make the change and actually start Sumo Cyco?
Well, it is such a gradual change. It's hard to say that there was one defining moment, but there was a few moments that I guess I kind of skipped a few steps that got me even closer to my end result. And throughout my entire life, I've always really enjoyed heavy music. Guitar-oriented music has always really been important to me. Even in my pop career, I I remember fighting with the label, with people constantly about wanting to be heavier. And I never had that real opportunity because we always kind of had to keep things within a certain kind of context for what our goals were, what the label's goals were for my career. And when at the end of when it kind of all kind of almost like transitioned, so there was like, MP3s were coming in, the new people working in some of the labels were pushing other people out. I didn't have as many allies, and I was kind of left doing a lot more touring that was like in Canada, just me in a van with a bunch of people, and it kind of like scaled way back from doing, Christmas bashes and playing the Jay Leno show and opening for Britney Spears and all that stuff. Kind of the opportunities started getting less and less, and I was like, you know what, out of all of this, I understand, that the music industry is a friggin' roller coaster and you're only as good as your last hit, but if I'm going to go down, I want to be going down doing some crazy, weird, creative stuff. And to me, that was expanding my horizons and doing something like Sumo Cyco and really pushing myself artistically to see where I could really go as an artist. And it wasn't until I kind of reconnected with Matt Drake, who was the guitarist in my backing band with my solo career, that he was an artist as well. He had his own band, and we started writing together, and we would share musical interests, and he would play me bands that he thought were really cool that I should like. And one of them I remember specifically was Skindred, and another one at the time was this band called Animal Alpha, who had a song on a video game where it was a female-fronted band, and she was just screaming her head off and doing rhythms that I had never heard a female like throw out in heavy music, and that was getting me really excited. And I said to Matt, I'm like, we need to do something like this, something that you could headbang to, that you could rock out to. And I think we were snowboarding, and I remember talking to him on the ski lift going up the hill and being like, we need to start a band, you and I. Like, we should be in a band together. We're both super creative. We both have like really intricate musical taste. Like, if we put our heads together, we could come up with something pretty cool. And he was in. So that was where Sumo Cyco was born.
So did you kind of pitch that to your label at the time, or was this something that you were just taking independently?
So I did go to a few connections that I had in the industry to kind of feel out what they thought. And I remember Chris Taylor, he's a really big music lawyer in Toronto, was kind of like, you realize that if you do this type of music, Skye, that you need to build things from like the ground up. Like you can't just jump in like with a pop career. You can kind of jump in and just get like a few execs to like really love what you do and kind of market you. But in the rock industry, it's a bit different. You need to have some like street cred in a sense,
Yeah.
It's like you need to get out there and play shows, and you need to build fans one by one. And people aren't going to take you seriously if you can't get out there and really show what you can do properly. Like, you can't just be like just kind of put your song on the radio and see what sticks. So I was like, okay. And I would show it to a few other people, and a few other people like didn't understand because they thought, Skye Sweetnam's coming in, it's going to be like a pop project. And here I am like showing them some like weird, like dark kind of kooky metal project. They're like, what is this? So a lot of people didn't understand. Some people were trying to be helpful, but knew that it wasn't as marketable off the hop as that my previous stuff could have been. So I was like, you know what? I was a little bit disillusioned from the whole industry as well. There'd been like a lot of kind of crap that had happened, politicking and lawsuits and managers that hated this guy and this guy hated that guy. And I just felt like I wanted none of the drama. Like, I wanted to just get out of the business of trying to politic my way to the top, and I just wanted to create music. That was my goal. Like, please let me just do music. So I kind of retreated from the industry a bit. Like, I actually didn't go out of my way to like knock down as many doors as I could have, because I needed time to kind of recalibrate myself to this new artist that I wanted to become. And I wanted that to be rooted in the art. I didn't want it to be rooted in doing what's popular or trying to chase trends. I wanted to do it based upon an authentic need to like express. And so that's kind of in a long-winded way explaining kind of like why I didn't kind of go straight to a label and try to get, kind of get promotion. I tried a little bit, but realized I really needed to take the time to really figure out where I wanted to go creatively. And I realized that didn't always jive with what the industry, can make money on all the time.
Yeah. No, I understand that completely. So what year did Sumo Cyco officially form?
So I say that's 2011, because that's when we first released our first single and video online, but obviously we were working on that stuff previous, so kind of a bit into 2010 is when we were really kind of taking things seriously and trying to like prepare for a release.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was essentially like Matt and I kind of creating stuff, and then we invited, at the time, my touring buddy. I just finished touring with a guy named Legs Leger, who ended up drumming for Every Time I Die, and that's the reason why he left Sumo Cyco, so I totally forgive him for that. And Ken Thorcork is a awesome friend also, who toured with me back in like the pop days, so friends of Matt and mine, and we just thought these guys will work great, let's get on the stage together and start rolling this thing.
That's awesome. Now, you mentioned like having a video and all that stuff, and by the way, in 2010 you were already kind of like a seasoned veteran of like touring in the music business, because you broke out in like 2003, so you already had like, you knew what you were doing going into this. And I wanted to ask you, as far as videos go, who comes up with the videos and like the ideas for the videos? Is that you?
Yeah, so I would say that at the beginning of Sumo Cyco, it was a really, really tight collaboration with Matt and I. Matt introduced me to so much B and C horror movies. He is a huge buff when it comes to that stuff. He loves like sci-fi and like any kind of obscure film he is totally into. And I've got to say, without his influence, I probably wouldn't be into film quite the same way that I am. And so he influenced that completely. So he is really amazing when it comes to camera angles and kind of coming up with like DIY hacks to kind of make things look more production value than they actually are. But in the later years, like the last few videos, it's definitely been more me leading with the ideas of the concept of the video. And then Matt will come in and kind of support that and be like, okay, I know what I could build for that. I know how we could practically make this happen. If you want like this scene, like I think I could figure out something. So it really is a collaboration between the two of us, but I think when it comes to like this world of Cyco City and building that out, that is definitely my brainchild, and I almost can annoy the guys by knowing so much about this thing and not letting them in on the secret, so they end up having fans will ask them questions about it and they'll have no idea what's going on, and I'll be like, remember that character is this character? They're like, oh yeah, okay. So yeah, it is my brainchild, that part of it.
That's cool. That's really awesome to hear. So let's talk your new album, Initiation, and it's only been out for about a month. And this is a kick-ass rock and roll record. I mean, when I say that you guys are like carrying the torch for rock and roll right now, I truly stand behind that statement. I can't even tell you how good this album is. Did you approach this album when writing it differently than your past albums, or are you guys just gradually evolving naturally?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. I think circumstances also kind of interweaved themselves in a way that helped this record become what it is. And that being the fact that the last 4 years since we've released Opus Mar, we've had vast experiences as far as touring, which have really helped us hone in on what works for a crowd, what doesn't work for a crowd, what are the moments in our set or our previous songs that make the crowd go wild, and how do we create more of those moments in our music so that when we translate it to the stage, we can see when moments are really kind of explosive and exciting, and the dynamics in a record, from going to kind of a soft part and exploding here can make the crowd erupt. And those are moments we want to encourage. So the more we can write those in the first place is going to make it better. The other circumstance that really determined this record was the fact that we had so many stops and starts with the release date. So we originally were planning on independently releasing this record, and we released those two songs, Love You Wrong and Run With the Giants, in anticipation of doing our own independent release. And then when we had the busy year of touring, things kind of kept getting pushed off slightly until the opportunity came to work with Napalm. And when that presented itself, it also tacked on a few more months of kind of reconnecting, trying to get contracts in order, figuring out who our team was, getting them up to speed with the band, figuring out, a track listing for them and meeting their deadlines and what they needed at certain points. And then, of course, that was being figured out super early 2020, and then the pandemic hit. So then that put another layer of, okay, wait, maybe we shouldn't release this record yet. Let's, sit back, get a temperature for how the industry is working. Are we going to be able to tour? Are we not? Are we staying at home? Can we get together with the band? Which led Matt and I to kind of retreat into, well, if we can't do anything like go on tour, let's go back to writing mode. So then we wrote even more material. So having these kind of stops and starts of the record definitely gave us moments to reflect, look at the record, go, is there enough, A or B, or do we have a strong enough chorus here? Can we get a stronger chorus? Oh, this song we just wrote is better than this song. Let's replace that. So it was kind of like a puzzle piece, and we just kept getting more puzzle pieces as time went on, and now we can construct like what I consider an even better record because now we have more to play with. So yeah, so I think all those factors combined really helped this record become what it is. And then to add one more layer on that is working with Kane Churko. We worked with him on a couple of tracks, Vertigo and Overdrive, and he is an outstanding producer who I think opened Matt's eyes as far as production goes to try to make the other songs reach his level sonically, and really pushed Matt as a engineer and as a producer. And I think when you have that little bit of, it's like a bar that a threshold that we have to meet, because Kane set that bar so high working with him on those two songs, it really kind of pushed Matt, and I think that was a great reason on why the record sounds as good as it does.
Also, too, when you guys jumped onto Napalm, that probably felt really good for all of you because they have some heavy hitters on that label. And with you guys jumping in, you fit right in perfectly, so you had to know that you were going to get taken care of.
Yeah, no, it's been awesome working with Napalm. As someone who has a hard time giving away control, it makes it a lot easier when they know what they're doing, when you feel like you're handing the control over to someone who has experience and does this all the time. That is a lot more comforting to me. So it's been great, and I gotta give Napalm props for having our backs when it comes to any negativity that's ever shade thrown our way. They never bend to the fact that, oh yeah, maybe you should try to be a little bit more like dark and metal. It's like they're like, no, shine as bright as you need to shine, be as colorful as you need to be, be you. And that's really amazing thing that they've done for us, as well as just kind of fill in some of the gaps as a person that kind of has to put on the marketing hat and then put on the songwriting hat and the video hat, constantly changing my hats. It's really great to give them oh man, you are really awesome at the PR. Okay, I don't have to worry about scheduling the PR. It's one thing off my list that I don't have to scramble like a chicken with my head cut off trying to make sure I'm doing everything I need to do to make sure the release goes properly. So having a team of capable people is so great. Takes some weight off my shoulders.
Well, you also mentioned that a lot of this happened during the pandemic, and we said the release was very fresh, and it's already getting great reviews and people love it, and that must feel really good too, because you're not able to tour right now in support of the record, but the record is still gaining steam, so that's a testament to your songwriting abilities.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, sometimes it's hard to gauge what the temperature is in the industry or in the room because of the fact that we're not touring. And I think touring, getting on stage every night and seeing new people come up to you and tell you their stories of how they discovered the band, or seeing more people show up to the show, that new faces that you've never seen before, those are kind of my signals to me of okay, we're doing the right thing, we're reaching new people. But when you're in this pandemic situation, it's tough because sometimes they say, don't read all your own press, right? It'll just mess your head up because you'll be taking opinions from all these different people and affecting you. But right now we don't have that gauge of how things are doing because we're just kind of going through the internet of okay, is this person saying this or saying that, or how many views do we get on here? And sometimes that can be a blessing and a curse because you're oh, this is really good, we're picking up steam, we're getting more people, but it also makes you over obsess about oh, I need to hit those numbers, or oh, I need to make sure everyone likes it in the review, or I have to prove this guy wrong, he doesn't know what he's talking about, he thinks that I'm manufacturing, and you're just thinking so much about what everyone's opinions are instead of just sitting in your own and just being you know what, we're cool, we're just doing our thing, and if more people come to the shows, and that's where the proof is in the pudding kind of thing. So for us, it's we're still learning how to kind of navigate the online world because we're so, as a band, especially myself, I am the social media person posting all the time for the band. So if you don't kind of read the temperature in the room or know what people are saying and kind of have a feel for how the industry is working, you don't know the right things to post, or you don't know what kind of content you need to do. So I need to stay on top of that, but it's a double-edged sword, I guess, because it makes me pay attention to everything too much. I'm glued to this thing. Jeez.
Well, with COVID seemingly starting to wind down now, is there a plan for you to do live shows or a tour moving forward? And if so, are you allowed to tell us anything about it?
So I unfortunately can't can't divulge any details because we're still like in the confirming stage, but as soon as everything is confirmed, we'll definitely be shouting it from the rooftops. But right now we're on track to be in UK by the end of this year, and we're hoping that next year, early 2022, that it'll be full of all the US dates that we could ever want. So.
Awesome. All right. Something to look forward to then. Now, you're still mainly, are you guys located in Canada, so you're probably more locked down than we are right now?
Yes, we're still in complete lockdown until a few more weeks from now. It's just essential services, so it's pretty tightly locked up here right now, yeah.
And that's wild to me, too, because I'm in Buffalo, so I'm like right there over the border, and everything is like pretty much normal here at this point.
I'll see you from where I'm at.
Yeah, right.
We're just south of Lake Ontario, and Buffalo's like literally like, you know, not even like an hour away, so.
Oh, very cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So when you look back at your first album, Lost in Cyco City, and then you look at Initiation, when you take that step back, can you see the growth in the band? Can you hear that? Or to you, is it like a run-on, like you knew it was going to go that way from the beginning?
Well, I can definitely tell the evolution sonically. As far as songwriters as well, I can definitely tell. And it's tough because there is, as much as there's always something gained in an evolution, you always have to leave some things behind as well. And it's just kind of like how people say when you're evolving, you shed that skin, right? There's a skin that's kind of left. And you hope that what you leave with the skin isn't any of the good stuff, that you're only taking the good stuff with you forward. But I think that just like a child that grows into an adult, there's some like innocence or like magic or some type of like almost naivety in the way that we created at the beginning, where we weren't thinking about the same things in the same ways. We hadn't clued in yet to how a crowd works. We haven't clued in yet on what makes, you know, a certain song more of a single or a kind of a more adventurous, like, progressive track. And those things weren't as clear at the beginning. We were just, like, making music just for the heck of it. And it wasn't overthought as much. And I think as you get better at any craft, it starts becoming more intellectual than it is at the beginning. In the beginning, it's just kind of like, oh, we're just having fun. We're just learning all these new skills. And then as you kind of hone in, you start seeing patterns, you start seeing these, like, you know, numbers start kind of like I'm thinking of a meme right now where all the numbers and triangles are around the guy's head, and I'm just like thinking in on, like, you know, what are the things that make the songs the best they can be. And so I think that we've gotten better at knowing each other as creators, what things that I can say that will push Matt in the right direction to get the kind of goals that I want him to get. Even our vocabulary on how we explain things to each other has gotten better. So if I'm trying to get at a crunchiness in the sound, that's something maybe I didn't know how to explain to Matt earlier, and I would just be like, you know, where it has that, like, kind of, you know, this or that, like, it feels like it's kind of, you know, pushing in on each other, and he's like, what do you mean? Like, what are you talking about? So we've been better at communicating. So I think that that's, in a long-winded way, again, here I can talk for hours, but that's us kind of leaving some things behind with Lost in Cyco City that will always have a place in my heart. But I do feel like we're getting to a more refined, honed-in sound. And yeah, I am really proud with the direction we've been going.
So if I asked you to pick a favorite track on Initiation, could you do it?
It's a tough one. I find that it is a question that we get asked a lot, is to, like, pick between our children.
Yes.
Yeah, but it is different moments. I will tell you that when I first write a song is when I'm always the most excited about it. There's never a doubt in my mind that it is, you know, that process, the endorphin rush you get when you're creating something out of nothing, you really do take pride in it and think it's the best thing you've ever done at that moment. And then time fades and you can kind of see where the songs stack up in my mind against each other. But for me, definitively at the beginning of this process, I would have said Love You Wrong was my absolute favorite, but then as time went on, it evolved to Bystander, because I felt like that was just a really strong representation of what we are as a band. If someone were to be like, okay, you have, you know, 30 seconds to introduce me to Sumo Cyco, go, like, play something, you know, I think I would go there first, just because I think it adds so many different elements. But I also, when I'm jamming in my car, the one song that I go to first sometimes is Bad News. It's one of my favorites, and I think that was because the instrumental Matt wrote was one of my absolute favorite instrumentals, and no matter what vocals I came to him with, he was not satisfied. And I kept telling him, like, this is such a cool instrumental. I can't let you down. Like, I feel like I'm letting you down not coming up with something you like, even though I liked every single version I came up with. He was still not satisfied, and he pushed me until I came up with what Bad News is now. And so there's a little bit of like, kind of like a, man, I did it. Like, I finally like got through and wrote enough versions of that damn song, so now that song did make the record, and it is kick-ass, just like I knew it was going to be when I heard that instrumental, but it took a long time to get there. So different songs have different relationships to me in my mind and why I fall in love with them or not. So yeah, that's just a small example of one of the things.
Well, after talking to you for just about a half hour already, I can tell you're like super driven and into it at all times. So do you immediately start writing the next record as soon as the first one's finished?
Well, Matt actually is more on it than I am, because he has an even stronger pull towards music beyond everything else. I'm a little bit more, I need to do video, I need to do marketing, I need to do social media, so I'm a little bit like spread open with too many things my hands are in at once, whereas Matt has a really good way of just like putting the blinders on and just focusing in on making music. So he's made about 4 or 5 instrumentals, and I've had the opportunity to kind of like once in a while kind of take a couple hours and kind of fool around with some of the melodies and ideas for lyrics, but my head isn't completely in there until I finish what I need to finish for the videos for the rest of this record, because I feel like when you move on too quick, I'm all excited about the new songs and I still haven't finished. The old songs get harder and harder to get to, because you're like, oh man, I'm so excited about the new stuff that I'm not even wanting to work on the old stuff anymore. But I understand that this record is still new to so many people, so I've got to keep pushing on, and we're excited. We're going to make a couple more videos for this record as well, so there's more to look forward to.
Awesome. Since we're talking about the videos and how, you know, you're on the social media and you're handling all of that kind of stuff, you're super interactive with your fan base, and you're always pumping out something, and there's always something for them to read or look at or see from you. Is that something that you had to work to do, or did that come naturally to you?
Yeah, it is pretty natural. I mean, like, I've been in this industry, like you said, for so long that it almost feels like I kind of had like the ultimate education, you know, growing up and being that age and kind of getting used to how this industry works. It's like, you know, it's like a tree forming next to a fence. It just like always knew it was there, and so it kind of evolves to like integrate it into itself, you know, like that's how I kind of feel with the music industry, is that it's almost like I've molded my entire life to what I need to do do music as a career. Like, even the fact that I, you know, found this place that we live is like off the beaten path, but it lets us play music at all hours because we're not near any other humans, that it has enough space so that we can put a drum kit in the living room. Like, I know a lot of other of my, you know, peers or women making their lives and getting their new house are not always thrilled about not having a dining room table. It's just going to be a drum kit. But to me, that's so important, is about making sure that my priorities every day are this band. And behind me, I have a huge mess of all my packing supplies, because I pack the store out of the house. So to me, instead of having like this beautiful, like refined house that's like a zen space for me, it's like, you know, every day I wake up and in my face is, oh yeah, I gotta do those packages, oh yeah, I gotta rehearse, oh yeah, I gotta do this. So yeah, it is, sorry, I lost track of your actual question just going off, but yeah, it is true that yeah, I've been in this industry a long time, so everything does start to feel like natural to me, I guess.
All right, very cool. So I kind of like that concept too, that like if it's in your face, you're going to make sure you do it. I can totally relate to that, because I'm the type of person that's like, yeah, I'll get to it and then completely forget about it unless I see it. So that makes complete sense.
Well, your original question was about the fans, right?
No, just that it comes naturally, or if it came naturally to you, to be so interactive and be so, you know, every single day in it. Make sure you're posting, make sure people have stuff to read and look at, and merchandise.
Yeah,
do you come up with the merchandise too?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I work closely with Francesca Ludicar. Got to give Fran credit. She is also the creator of the record cover.
Okay.
And but yeah, it is an everyday thing, and I think there's a little bit of that. I was actually talking to Matt about it yesterday, about like there's this constant like weight that I feel when I'm not on top of it when I don't have like content lined up for the future. If I'm ever behind where I'm just creating, like trying to catch up, it gives me like anxiety because I'm like, man, I don't feel like I can relax until I've kind of caught up and I feel like I have some stuff kind of waiting in the wings to release. So it is something that I think it's just my personality that it's built. I can't easily take time off if I feel like there's things I could do to help my career. So it is kind of a struggle because we have worked so hard. The last few months have been literally no rest, lots of all-nighters, lots of no time off. So, it's good to have balance, yes, but I also feel like, especially in this time where we don't have touring, it's almost like we have to work twice as hard to kind of keep the attention of everyone because everyone's just online and it's so saturated that it's even more of a task to do. So, but we try to have as much fun with it as possible. Matt helps me out. He's got a good attitude about everything, so it's good having him on my side.
Yeah, you need a teammate for something like that because, man, like... I even know, like, with me being a professional wrestler and a musician myself and having this podcast, I'm even like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be posting right now. So seeing somebody like you who's, like, on it all the time, I'm like, oh, okay, so I don't know how to do that. But you're, like, on top of it like it's nothing.
Well, it is. I mean, to me, I have done a little bit of work on the side as a social media marketer for other projects and bands. So one of the things I learned pretty early on is everything is just about having a schedule. If you have a goal of like, hey, here are the different topics that I want my audience to know about me, and then you just kind of literally have a calendar in front of you and be like, okay, this week I'm going to post 3 things, photos of me doing X, and then this week I'm going to post, something musical because I know I want people to see me, performing, and just kind of think of those things and line it out. It does make it so much easier because you can kind of like see the patterns and what things you need to like create and what things you can repost all the time. And I find that one thing I forget is, especially at this time where new fans are being introduced to Sumo Cyco, a lot of them don't know our history or some of the old videos or some of the old content or the fact that we have toured around the world. So there's a library of photos that I have from the past that I'm like, even though it seems like old news to me, some of the coolest stuff can be brought up as memories and, live shots, for instance, or some of our videos that maybe no one took the chance to dive into the YouTube rabbit hole and find, so I can bring those up again. So that kind of stuff, I always try to remind myself that we're sitting on a lot of content. It's just using it in the right way,
Right, yeah. And now I'm going to try that, and then I'm going to get back in touch with you and be like, hey, guess what? It's working. So
I could help my little tip.
Yeah, right. For anybody listening, tell me how you discovered that you had a love for rock and roll to begin with.
Well, I think that was just growing up in my house. My dad was a very musical person. He had a lot of music playing in the house all the time when we were kids, and we loved dancing so much that my parents decided not to put dining room furniture in the dining room, and we called it our dancing room. And all it was a cabinet with a stereo, and the whole room was empty except it had these sliding glass doors that led to outside. And then when the light hit it the right way, I could see my reflection. And so I have a lot of memories of me and my sister dancing around looking at our reflection to, all the bands my dad loved, from the Police to the Cranberries and Supertramp, and we had musicals playing all the time, and, Disney, all the Disney music when I was a kid, and I would pretend that I was all the characters and act out all the parts. So I really had like that performance bug in me. Mm-hmm. And then as I started getting more into music, one of my big influences was the first producer I worked with on my first record. His name's James Robertson, and we wrote the whole record, my first record, in a basement of his parents' house. He was 21. I was 13 when I first met him, so I would have been about 14 when I first started writing with him.
Wow.
And his dad was a film composer, so his dad had like all this kind of like any gear that was like not as up to date as he needed it, he would just store it all downstairs. So James had access to all these cool keyboards and, old eclectic instruments, and we would just have fun for hours just going through like his dad's stuff. And James also had a massive record collection because of it, so like tons of CDs. So he would go through, and anytime there was something that I didn't know about, he would educate me. And I would be like, what is that band like Led Zeppelin all about? And he'd be like, you don't know Led Zeppelin? And he'd like tell me all, you know, the history and play me music and really educate me. And we would go to the record store. I remember specifically going to the CD store and him helping me pick out like famous records that define genres, and like, these are ones that you should know as a you know, young musician. And so that was a huge influence. And then when I met the band members of my pop career, they were all into some really cool like punk music, and they all had their own musical taste. So because I surrounded myself with different people that had like such a passion for music, but also they loved all sorts of different bands, it really kind of helped me to develop my own musical taste. And I don't think that I probably would have such an eclectic taste if it wasn't for all the different influencers in my life that kind of influenced my taste. Yeah.
So who would you say your biggest inspirations are in music?
Well, I'd be remiss to not mention Benji Webb. He is a hero of mine, not only because Skindred was one of the first bands that I listened to that really made me want to start a band, but then with having the experience to work with him and to meet him and to become friends with him is something like of a full circle moment where you really realize if you really have a goal. And to me, it was to have Benji Webb sing on a Sumo Cyco track, and it comes true. It kind of validates our pursuit and makes us realize, like, yo, it is possible to make crazy things happen if you just kind of set out a specific goal and go for it. And make sure it's specific, because the more specific the goal, the easier it is to zone in and make it happen. And for me, that was meeting Benji and him being the coolest guy. So his vocals are sick, because instead of approaching a rock song the way that is like straight down the middle, he has that, you know, dance hall urban kind of influence that I really enjoy, which is trying to make the body move. And the way that he kind of drops those rhythms is sick. And I always try to imitate him in a way, but because my voice is so different, it doesn't sound the same at all. But I love the fact he can go higher than the Guru, and he does these cool like dimensions with his voice. Of course, Gwen Stefani is one of the first females I saw on stage when she was playing her arena shows at Tragic Kingdom. I saw her doing push-ups on stage while she's singing Just a Girl, and I was like, whoa, like that is so badass. I want to be that. So that's one of my huge inspirations. And I mean, Gwen comes from things now. She's a bit more of like a, you know, a mature woman. She's super classy. She has her business together with her, you know, brands of clothes and shoes. And I'm, you know, that's something as a business person inside of me that's an entrepreneur, that's something I really strive for, is being able to kind of have that poise and elegance and kind of like age so gracefully the way she has, and be able to kind of do all of her different passions. And one of the things I heard recently about Gwen was she has had a hit in rock, a hit in pop, and a hit in country now. So because she started off with No Doubt, and then she moved to doing kind of more pop solo music, and then now with a country single, I'm like, that is why I love her, is because it feels the same to me, is you don't have to be stuck in one genre to have a multi-dimensional career. And yes, I can, you know, be signed to Capitol Records as a teen and then do a metal record, and who knows what else I'll do in the future. And it really makes me feel like possibilities are limitless, and we don't need to be kind of stuck in our own boxes of like, this is who I am, I can't be anything else. Like, you could be anything you want to be, and I love that. And then also, I mentioned earlier, the band Animal Alpha was a huge inspiration. Skunk and Antsy are a huge inspiration. I love Blondie. Covered a Blondie song back when I was about 16, did Heart of Glass, and I always thought she was such a badass. So yeah, lots of different acts have kind of seeped in somewhere. And when we record, Matt always shouts out to me like, hey, do this verse like you're Nicki Minaj, or do this verse like you're, you know, Ben for Billy Talent. Like, he'll just throw out like some of our influences at me and see what I come up with. And it's kind of like a fun way to kind of experiment with my voice. And yeah, and we'll see. I'll take the best bits of each character and kind of combine it into my own sound.
That's really cool. So if I asked you to give me a band that would be like your dream tour for you guys to go out with, could you do that? Or is there just too many that flood your mind?
There's a lot that floods my mind, but I think that it's important to think of the playing live as, you know, not only, you know, for me, it's like I would go to see, Rage Against the Machine. And yeah, I probably watch the show and be like, man, I wish my band was up there right now playing in front of this crowd. But I think there's a humble, and because I've been through so much in this industry, that I realize that, every opportunity that we're given, no matter how big or small, is really something to be seized. And so for me, as a live performer, it's really important on not only dreaming big, but also realizing that you can have a huge impact, sometimes even a bigger impact, when you have a smaller crowd than you can playing in front of an arena like that. And because I've played arenas with Britney Spears, knowing that when you walk off stage, people are, not as engaged per se in what's on stage as they are when you're literally in a room that's the size of a small closet, and every single person is hanging on every single word you say because they're so in and so ready to party, and they're so intense compared to some fans that are just casually walking into an arena and be like, oh, that was good, that was all right, blah blah, and walk out. I think they're harder critics the more non-music fans you reach, and the bigger you reach, the more audience you reach. You kind of don't always get those super hardcore music fans. So sometimes for me, playing in front of a crowd that's nobody knows who Sumo Cyco is.
Yeah.
And there's only a few people. And if I have that goal in my mind, those, 20 people in front of me right now are going to walk away saying this is the best night of their life. They're going to say this is the most fun I've ever had. That's kind of my goal, is to, no matter how big or small the crowd is, to make people feel welcome and feel like they're ready to party. And I think in an arena, it is so much harder to keep an engaged crowd than it is in smaller spaces. So I got to give those acts props for, one of the coolest things I saw was Dennis from the band Refused. He was opening up for Faith No More, and he literally took his mic cord. He had the longest mic cord of history, and he just went as far into the arena as he could. He was going up the stadium steps, and he's singing, and he's getting all the crew and the audience to help him belay the mic cord so it doesn't get tangled on his way. And it was I was like, that's how you do it. That's how you get everyone in this audience being like, what's going on? Where is he? Where is he? And they're glued to him. And it stops being this kind of the stage is where everything exists. It becomes, now the show is in our face. We're present in that moment. And that's what I always try to do when I use crowd participation and get in people's face. And I make them know that they are just as much a part of this moment. They're not a spectator. They are part of this. And that's, I think, the main difference is just being watched and having people take part in a concert.
So when you made the switch and started Sumo Cyco, was it important for you to maybe not associate your name with the band right off the bat because you wanted them to just you wanted the band to grow on its own name? Or was it cool with you if people were like, oh, that's Skye Sweetnam, I know who that is, and would come to the shows?
For me, there is definitely a kind of carryover. So because I had a pretty loyal YouTube fan base, I played a little game with our fans where I got my character with Sumo Cyco, Sever, to kidnap my pop persona, Skye Sweetnam. I'm referring to myself in the third person, but Skye Sweetnam was captured by Sever, and it was kind of like a fun way to kind of explain to my fans, hey, something's happening here. It's going to be a bit different than what you're used to. It's not going to be the same type of content. Here we go, get ready. And some people are like, whoa, I don't get this. And some people are like, okay, I'm in. I'm following this kind of breadcrumb trail that I'm putting out there, and they're gonna let's see where this goes. And it's so cool because some of those people have evolved with me, where they started off as being pop fans, and now they are into so many different types of music and heavier music because of their own tastes evolving. But there definitely was the reason why I created the name Sever, was because I wanted to have a bit of a different personality that could show, I think, in a very visual way and a very kind of defined way that this music I'm creating is going to be different than the maybe the assumptions people made about me as a pop artist. And I did think that there are things that I can say that can hurt our reputation as a band. Unfortunately, people are closed off to think someone that opened up for Britney Spears can't possibly be a credible, rock singer who creates her own music and, built everything from the ground up, because look, she was that big, she got that handed to her, but they don't know all the pieces in between a lot of the time, or I heard one guy say, Sumo Cyco looks like a band that the singer wants to go solo, but she just like gets a band around her just so she can, start off and then just ditches them as time goes on. I'm like, dude, you have no idea. It was the other way around. Like, I was a solo artist. And then I really wanted a band because I wanted to have a bunch of warriors with me that would go out onto the road and friggin' do it, To me, it was totally opposite. So it's funny what assumptions people make of you, and it's hard to educate every single person. So to me, that there was a need for a bit of time and space to happen between, those years of doing pop music and now, but now I take it all in stride. Now I see young kids, they're playing metal guitars over Britney Spears songs, and I'm like, that to me is showing the type of influence that someone like Britney had in pop culture, but still doesn't stop the fact that people love heavy music, and to me that's still cool. Like, that's what I grew up on, and whether or not that was cool when you're 40 and Britney Spears came out, you don't necessarily think it's cool, but when you were 12 and she came out, holy crap, it was cool. You know what I mean? So it shows the different generations, and trying to appeal to an older generation that thought that think that those things are kind of like too basic or pop or whatever. I feel sorry for them because they're closing themselves off to some fun times, and like, who doesn't like getting down to Toxic on the dance floor? I mean, I feel sorry for you if you can't do that.
I mean, I hear where you're coming from. Like I said, when I first went to that Christmas bash, I was like, come on, guys, I'm into like metal and rock music. I don't want to do this. And then I had a blast, and I was like, this is awesome. And like, from that point forward, I was like, whatever, these people are all great. I get it. And it sucks that some people can be that way, but I do have one more thing for you. And first, I want to thank you for being here because I truly appreciate it. Like I said, I'm a fan, and you guys are carrying that fucking rock and roll torch, and I love that.
Thank you.
I just want you to plug all your social media, the band's social media, YouTube, yours, and anything else that you want to plug that might be coming up. And this is just your time to talk about whatever you want.
Cool. Well, thank you for everyone that's tuned in, that's listening. If you guys want to learn more about Sumo Cyco, you can hit us up on all of our socials, are just Sumo Cyco, SUMOCYCO, and that's across Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, you name it. We also have a website. It's our hub for everything. It has our merch store. It'll take you to the UK merch store if you're from abroad, take you to the Napalm store if you want to buy directly from them, and that's sumocyco.com. So yeah, if you can spell our band name, SUMOCYCO, just Google that and you'll be able to find us. And fingers crossed that we'll be able to make it out to a city near you guys. Subscribe to our mailing list, and we'll be blasting out when we're finally going on tour. I can't wait. It's going to be sick. Best parties ever. I'm ready to have so much fun. I want to party so hard. So let's do it.
Awesome. Well, Skye, thank you. This was awesome. You rock for this. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Robbie. You have an awesome day, and thanks for spreading the word about Sumo Cyco.
Tell me what you do if you can't touch the floor. Gravity slips on a stick, and I can't take no more. I'm running at full speed like I'm under attack. I got this book to survive. I won't fall in your trap. I'm steady, I'm heavy. I've got to escape from this feeling. Why is it so damn hard to see? You got me so high up, I cannot breathe. Give me vertigo, vertigo.
All right, rock soldiers. So once again, that was Skye Sweetnam. Hell of a career so far. Sumo Cyco is awesome. She got started super young, so she's a veteran in this business. And you guys just listened to Vertigo after that interview ended there. So just wanted to let you know what song you were checking out, and go pick up Initiation, order it, get the t-shirts, download it, however you get your music, and support, because it truly helps, especially during a pandemic where artists aren't able to tour. So get your hands on that. And don't forget that we're also sponsored by Death Comes Lifting, so hit deathcomeslifting.com for all your workout needs for all you metalheads, horror freaks, and punks out there. Fitness for the misfits at its finest, and join their Patreon and become a part of the Lifting Dead Army. Make sure you follow Sumo Cyco on all social media, and follow the All Bets Are Off podcast and Robbie Vegas as well. And I thank you guys, and I will see you next week.
The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network.